who are the natives to the land of Israel? Is it the Palestinian Arabs? Are they the Jews? Is it a combination of both? What's the beef about? When did it start? I'm not going to go all the way back into ancient history here. Let's keep it contemporary. What would you say to this?
Well, the argument from the Zionist narrative is that the ethnic group which they represent, which they claim they represent, they don't represent it. Of course, many Jews condemn, significant majorities condemn Zionism, but their argument is that Jews are not invaders of Palestine, and Zionists not invaders of Palestine because Jews are natives of Palestine. They were there 2,000 years ago. They're just coming back home after 2,000 years.
Okay.
So this really is a side point, but they use it as a justifying narrative, so we have to discuss it.
Of course.
So if we're just going to discuss it from a purely just a historical analysis, the oldest historical record, which has some corroboration in some parts, not entirely, but has some corroboration, is the Torah, the Tanakh, the Old Testament, as Christians call it. And if you look at that, and you also look at archaeological evidence, we see that the Israelites haven't always been there. The Israelites being the 12 tribes of Israel. Judah is one tribe of Israel, which then was used to call the Jews. They invaded the land. The people that lived there were called Canaanites, or the land was called Canaan, or Canaanites, with the inhabitants, and they were invaded, and there was a kind of genocide of them by the invading Israelite tribes, as reported in the Bible.
In the Old Testament, right?
Yeah. So if you're going to be historical, just purely historical, the Israelites were invaders of the land, approximately, they say about roughly, historians think about 1200 BC. And they remained in the land. There was, wars with rival empires and things, and they were, moved around and things like this. But at some point after 70 AD or so, as they say, or the Common Era CE.
Yep.
Many Jews immigrated, although they immigrated actually before that. I mean, Rome is reported to have 50,000 Jews at least 100 years before, 50 to 100 years before the 70 CE. They're mostly economic migrants. They were going for, better prospects in Rome and so on and so forth. So Jews left for various reasons. People would leave for any reason, better prospects, what have you. And of course, it was a land that was in a crossroads, so there was many wars and things. So it was a very unstable place to be.
You made a really good point before when we did this this segment. I'm not sure if people remember, but I do. If you want more information, we've done a reaction before on the Jordan Peterson discussion with Netanyahu.
Yeah.
And you made a very, very good point, which I remember, which is that if you really count the years of, let's say, the Arab majority in that area versus the Jewish majority in that area, you were saying it's more with the Arab majority.
Okay, so basically, why I mentioned the habitation of Jews who would later be called Ashkenazi Jews. So let's just call it. Let's say European Jews for short. So Ashkenazi Jews left that region before there was an uprising by Jews against Roman occupation. And they were there for even hundreds of years, even after 70 CE. The Zionists always cite 70 CE as the time that Jews were kicked out without their will and consent. That's historically not true. There was no mass kicking out. There was further rebellions. You can't have further rebellions in a place where there's no people to actually rise up, So that's not true. And
there was an expulsion, though, of course, in 70 AD, right?
No, there was a capture of many Jews who were part of the uprising, and they were enslaved and sent to Rome. But there were already Jews in Rome, a significant proportion who were just economic migrants, not slaves.
Yeah,
that's the point. And there were Jews. There was still a significant majority of Jews residing in Palestine afterwards.
Yeah.
Now here's the thing, right? So Ashkenazi Jews, if you count the amount of, if you take 70 CE as a basis, what you'll find is that if you count the amount of time that Israelites have been in that land in total. So up to that point, so let's take 1300 years.
Yeah.
And the amount of time they've been outside the land since 70 CE. So let's say for Ashkenazi Jews, they started to come in greater numbers in 1800s. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So they've been outside the land for 1,800 years.
Yes.
And they've only ever been inside the land, ancestrally speaking, for 1,300 years.
Very interesting point.
So they were invaders they were invaders at the beginning.
Yes.
And let's say even if we concede they got kicked out, which they didn't.
Yes.
The majority of them weren't kicked out, but they've been living outside the land for longer than their ancestors ever lived inside the
Beautiful
land.
point.
So how are they natives then?
Yes, because now we have to go to what is native, what is being native or indigenous to a land.
Yeah.
Excellent. So that's a really good background.